take straw between your teeth. Go before people. You are very learned, you are very cultured, you are very great. But now forget all you know and just hear the message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So first you open their hearts. Not to flatter them, but to serve them. Because generally, for most people, for almost all people, unless you respect them, they are not going to respect you. Unless you acknowledge their needs, acknowledge who they are, and unless they feel some sort of either sympathy or appreciation, then most people, their minds and their hearts will just be blocked from really receiving what you want to give them. It's human nature. The boys didn't go up to the Brahmins and say, "You hypocrites." They actually were hypocrites. The boys knew it. They didn't go up and say, "You hypocrites. You cheaters. You rascals. If you don't give Krishna food, you're going to suffer." They didn't do that. They said, "Oh, earthly gods." No, Srila Prabhupada, he was expert. He would tell us sometimes people were rascals. Yes? But then when he meet them, he would be very respectful. That's very much the history. He said certain things about Indira Gandhi to the devotees. But when he met Indira Gandhi, Your Excellency. And essentially, after saying nice things, he would tell her the same thing, but in ways that she actually, yes, it's true. So it's not that this is some sort of duality. It's just being effective. He teaches the inside devotees certain things that we could learn, that we have to be beware of. But when he's actually approaching people, in other words, he's doing what is most beneficial according to the audience he's speaking. Certain principles are the principles of rascals, according to Prabhupada. So he would teach us like that. But when he would approach the people, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, when the governor of Bengal came to Mayapur, he didn't say, "You are a meat eater. Manu Samhita tells this is what's going to happen. You are taking intoxication. You are Malecha, you are Yavana." It's all true. In his lectures, he explains all this stuff. But when the governor came, he had a kirtan waiting for him, and he had everybody dressed up in a special way, and he had a banner saying, "God bless the king." Because he's representing the king. And he had a banquet and treated him. And the governor did so much service for Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati and so much service for Krishna. So if we actually want to reach people, we have to somehow or other open their hearts to receive, according to time, place, and circumstance. So the boys are calling these Brahmins earthly gods and the knowers of the true principles of religion. Hare Krishna. Should I continue, or is that... But even in their very loving, compassionate, passionate will to serve Krishna, the Brahmins totally ignored them. This is another good lesson. They actually really humbled themselves to open the hearts of these Brahmins because they wanted to engage them in Krishna service, which is actually exactly what all of us are doing in our interfacing with the world. We're trying to engage people in Krishna service. Yes. And in this case, the Brahmins, they want them to give some food to Krishna. So whether we're asking people for food, or for funds, or for some of their intelligence, or some of their influence, or some of their time, whatever it may be, devotees are beggars, begging people to give some of their hearts, their lives, in whatever form it may manifest, to offer to Krishna. Because Krishna's happy. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he told us his greatest happiness is when we give love for God to others. And giving love for God to others is engaging people in God's service. When we induce people to chant Krishna's name, that's yajna sankirtana. It's a sacrifice. When people actually chant the holy names of the Lord, that's a sacrifice. And all sacrifices, the Gita says, are meant for the pleasure of Vishnu. So they're actually giving some of their time, they're giving some of their energy, they're giving the power of their speech, they're giving the power of their mind, they're giving so much when they chant the holy names. It's an offering, and Krishna receives it. But what we're going to read in the coming verses, and since I'm not going to be here, because I'm leaving tomorrow for the West, and since many of you are not going to be for the following classes, I am going to step over my position and speak about the future verses. Briefly, so that those of you who can come to the future classes will, because our scholarly brahmacharis speak with great eloquence. They were so polite. They did everything with honor and respect to open the hearts of the Brahmins because they really cared. They didn't just do it ritualistically. They didn't just say, oh, earthly gods. Oh, best of knowers. They said it with feeling because they really wanted to get that food for Krishna. And if you really want to do something for Krishna, you have to do it in a way that the best possibility that it will work. Yes? And so in a similar way, when we're trying to reach people with the message of bhakti, we have to do it in a way, somehow or other, the best possibility that will work, in a way that will please Krishna. There's a fine line. We can't compromise our teachings. The Siddhanta has to be as it is. Otherwise, we're not representing Krishna. But how we prepare people's hearts to receive it, that is something that Krishna gives us the intelligence to do properly. There's the famous story of some of the early devotees. They were getting initiated, two brothers, and their mother came for the initiation. Prabhupada told them to invite their mother. Now the mother takes intoxication, and the mother eats meat, and the mother doesn't believe in Krishna at all. And the mother probably gambles. And, in Prabhupada's lectures, he's talking against these things. Yes? So he could have said, he could have said all these things in her face. But what did he say? He told his sons, go, this is in the middle of the initiation ceremony. He said, go and touch her lotus feet. He didn't say lotus. He said, go and touch their feet. The boys were shocked because they were kind of thinking their mother was a demon. And Prabhupada's saying, go and touch their feet. And they did. And what a lesson that was. The mother's heart completely melted. And this one devotee said, another time he went to visit his mother at her house. Probably to ask her for some money or something, I don't know. I'm not sure the details. But he went to the house and he rang the doorbell. Doom, doom. And she came and opened the door and she looked around and nobody was there. She was confused. The reason is he was doing his dandavats to his mother. She looked around, who's here? And then she looked down. What are you doing? I said, my Guru Maharaj told me I should bow down to you. So this is, and how much he completely conquered her heart by doing that. So, they really wanted to please. In this case, Brahmananda Prabhu and Gargamuni Prabhu were doing it to please Prabhupada. And Prabhupada was instructing them in such a way because this is very much the spirit of a preacher. To somehow or other gain people's respect and faith by showing respect and appreciation for whatever little we can find in them. Or much. So, and when Prabhupada chastised someone, it would have such fantastic effects because they really felt he cared and loved them. That's why his chastisement had such positive effects. Because directly or indirectly, people had such confidence that he really cares about me. So the boys did everything for Krishna's pleasure with honor and respect and asked in such a nice way. And even proved shastrically how it would be very good for them if they give. They totally ignored the boys. Didn't even acknowledge their existence. They were so proud. What a contrast. They're kind of sandwiched in between in that sense. They're in between. First there's the gopis, who completely show total egoless surrender. And then after is going to be their wives, who are practically equal to the gopis in their egoless surrender. And in between are the Brahmins, who are supposed to be the gurus of society. And they hear Krishna's name. They hear Balaram's name. They see the boys. The boys are saying they're hungry. Krishna and Balaram are hungry. And the Brahmins are thinking, we are doing something so important. They were fixed on getting liberated from material sufferings and getting more prosperous heavenly pleasures in this world. And they were very much, according to karma, kanda, performing their yagyas. They weren't like professional Brahmins. You know, you pay them and they'll do it. And if you give them some extra, they'll put more ghee in the fire. They were doing it really because they were real Brahmins in that sense, in the karma kanda sense. They were doing everything expertly, everything meticulously. Every mantra, yantra, tantra was precise. But they were so engrossed in that, so engrossed in their pious material pursuits, that they didn't acknowledge that they were offending these little children and they were disappointing Krishna and Balaram. Vedaischa sarver aham eva vedyo. All the Vedas, Krishna is to be known. Yat karoshi yarashnasi yat johoshi dadasya. All sacrifices, whatever we do, is only really meant to be an offering to Krishna. Vasudev is the goal of all yagyas. These are all scriptural statements. He's the goal of life in every way. So this is the common situation with religions all over the world, including right here in India. Everywhere. It's just human nature. As we take things cheaply. We see the thing we're doing and we forget the purpose it's meant to be done. We become distracted. Krishna tells in Bhagavad Gita that people get distracted by the flowery words of the Vedas. Sarva dharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja. Abandoning all dharma means all of our religious practices in one sense. It doesn't mean we stop doing our religious practices. It means we don't. It means it's all meant ultimately for one purpose. To surrender to Krishna, to please Krishna, to serve Krishna, to love Krishna. That's all. But they did not understand that. So the boys were extremely disappointed. And they ran back to Krishna. And they told Krishna that they didn't even acknowledge that we exist. And Sri Krishna encouraged them. He said, when you're a beggar, sometimes people give, sometimes people don't give. Just like Prabhupada said, Krishna doesn't see everything we offer. He sees the intent, the purpose in which it is offered. So even if apparently we fail, actually we're a success if we please Krishna. And Krishna is, by the character of our intentions, Krishna is pleased. So in this state, Krishna tells them, go to their wives, because they are my unalloyed devotees. Now the wives are just at home. because the Brahmins would not allow their husbands to be directly involved. They would just do the things on the side to assist them. And it was in the middle of the yajna. And the wives were expected to just, prepare things in the background and have them sent. And the little boys, Krishna didn't say that he just said, just tell them that we're here. Just go to these Brahmins' wives and tell them that myself and Balaram are nearby. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur very beautifully tells how Krishna didn't tell the boys to say that they were hungry. Because if the ladies found out that Krishna and Balaram were hungry, they would be in great distress. Krishna didn't want them to be in distress. He knew as soon as that they heard that they were close by, they would immediately bring food because they were so eager to see him, so eager to serve him. But the boys couldn't contain themselves. They went and said, Krishna and Balaram are hungry. Krishna wanted to protect the feelings of the hearts of these ladies. But the boys, they were just so enthusiastic to absolutely make sure that they would bring food to Krishna. So you see, there's unity and diversity in this sense. They're both perfect. It's not that the boys disobeyed in one sense. They were doing it for Krishna. Krishna's feeling for the devotees are feelings for Krishna. But ultimately the boys knew, distress or no distress, if they bring food, then they will be most fortunate. So as soon as the wives heard this, that Krishna and Balaram are close by and they're hungry, immediately they got many, many vessels of food. And they all started pouring toward the forest. It is described like rivers. Many rivers are flowing to the sea. Many Brahmins' wives were flowing to Krishna. And they all had their pots on their heads and their pots in their arms. And every one of them, husbands, brothers, sons, fathers, so many people tried to stop them. Where are you going? Where are you going? You can't just go into the forest. Your husbands are doing yajnas. They didn't say anything. They just went. And they knew by doing so, they may never return. Their anticipation, their enthusiasm. As Srimad Bhagavatam tells us, none of them had ever seen Krishna before. They were willing to surrender everything for Krishna, just because they heard about him. Because sometimes these ladies, they would go to the marketplace to get flowers or fruits, and some Brijavasi gopis were sometimes there selling. Or sometimes people who had heard from the Brijavasi gopis. And all the Brijavasi gopis and all the Brijabasis, all they would do is talk about Krishna. Jivve biba swami tamata deva govinda damodaram madhaveti. This is the mood of the gopis and the gopas of Vrindavan. My dear tongue, please taste the nectar of the sweetness of the names of Govinda, Damodar, and Madhava. 24 hours a day they were talking about Krishna, talking about his qualities, his beauty, his character, his pastimes. So these Brahmins' wives, directly or indirectly from the gopis, they would hear about Krishna's transcendental nature. And just by hearing, they completely fell in love with Krishna. They totally surrendered their hearts to Krishna. Because Krishna's pastimes are not different than Krishna. Krishna's names are not different than Krishna. The love of Krishna's devotees is not different than Krishna. And this is the best way to develop our love for Krishna. Their love was fully awakened. They simply wanted to serve. They simply wanted to surrender. They simply wanted to be with Krishna. So as soon as they got this invitation to do some seva, direct seva, they left everything. Nothing could stop them. As they were rushing through the forest to reach Krishna, to serve him, they saw Krishna walking with his friends. Then they came to a clearing near the bank of the Yamuna in the forest. Krishna was standing. He had a beautiful bluish complexion like a freshly formed monsoon rain cloud. His garments were brilliant like gold. He had minerals decorating his body, peacock feather on his hair, and other peacock feathers sometimes decorating various parts. He was decorated with fresh flowers, leaves. He had a garland that extended below his knees of wild flowers from the forest of Vrindavan. He was standing with one hand on the shoulder of a cowherd boyfriend. The other hand was twirling a lotus flower. He had lilies, fragrant flower lilies, hanging over his ears. And as they looked upon him with his beautiful lotus-like eyes, he gazed upon them and smiled. The sweetness of that smile expressed how he was so pleased with them. That smile inundated, drowned them in happiness, ananda, ecstasy. And they were so grateful. It described that those ladies, through their eyes, they brought this beautiful darshan of Krishna into the very core of their hearts. And there in the core of their hearts, as they were just standing, to a person who was just observing, they were just standing looking at Krishna. But what was going on is in the core of their hearts, they had brought the form of Krishna through their eyes, and with their hearts, with their souls, their body, mind, words, life, they were embracing Krishna. And Krishna was reciprocating and embracing them. Such a meditation. Then Krishna thanked them. He said, "Thank you for coming. You may sit down and be comfortable, and you may give the food to us." So they were so happy. "You have taken so much risk and so much trouble to come all the way here. I am so grateful to you. Now please be comfortable and sit. And give us your food." So they all made their offerings to Krishna. And after fulfilling all of their desires, Krishna told them that this is the very perfection of life. What you have done is the right thing. You have offered your love. You have offered your devotion. You have risked everything for me. Now that you have fulfilled the highest aim of life, you may go home. Because your husbands need you. They're in the middle of the sacrifices, and they require your help. They didn't want to hear that. In their own loving, humble, gentle ways, they revolted. They said, Krishna, no, we don't want to go home. In serving you, it's like it's like watering the root of the tree. Automatically everything, our love, our service goes to every living being. They didn't use these words, but in more or less they were saying like this. But this is a great example for all of us. This idea of watering the root of the tree, when Krishna is satisfied, yes, it's like putting water on the root of a tree, and our love, our service, our compassion, our everything goes to all parts of the tree, all living beings. Krishna didn't argue with that. Yes, it is true. What you've done is perfect and complete. But still you have your duties in this world. You must perform your duties in this world, but watering the root of the tree in this sense means always remember me. He said the true perfection of your life is not going to come by your physical proximity with me. It's not by being physically close to me. The true perfection of your life is in pleasing me, in worshiping my deity form, in hearing my glories and teachings, in chanting my glories and my holy names, in remembering me and meditating upon me. That is the process that you will actually be always with me. This is a very important instruction. It doesn't really say anywhere in Srimad Bhagavatam whether these Brahmins' wives ever really were with Krishna very much after this incident. Physically. But we can understand they were always with Krishna in their love. And this brings such great hope for everyone. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur told us, do not try to see Krishna. Try to serve Krishna in such a way that Krishna is pleased to see you. And Krishna is in our hearts. In fact, Krishna is everywhere. He's in the hearts of all of his devotees. He's in the hearts of all living beings. Krishna is seeing us constantly. But the question is Krishna pleased to see us? And Krishna here is telling, by worshiping my form in the deity, which is non-different than me, by meditating upon me, that meditation, remembrance of Krishna, by remembering Krishna, that's non-different than Krishna. By hearing from Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, by hearing from great saints, by hearing each other discussing Krishna, by chanting Krishna's names, by performing Sankirtan. This is the way we will always be together. He said, this is the way to develop true love for God. Not by physical proximity. And Srila Prabhupada very much stressed in relation to Krishna, in relation to himself, our founder Acharya Guru, the difference between Vani and Vapu. Vapu is the physical proximity. When the physical proximity is invited, we should be very enthusiastic to do it. We should, I'm too busy. Because when Krishna called them, they came. And if he called them any time after, they wouldn't say, no, I am doing my japa. They would come anytime he called them. So when he called, but being with Krishna, and same with gopis, Krishna called them for the Rasa Lila, and he basically spoke almost the same words to them, but the gopis wouldn't leave. But then Krishna left them and went to Mathura for 100 years. So ultimately, the gopis, why didn't they leave Vrindavan and go to Dwarka? Why they didn't leave Vrindavan and go to Dwarka? Because Krishna wanted them in Vrindavan. And by hearing about Krishna and speaking about Krishna and remembering Krishna and doing seva of Krishna in separation, they had the deepest bond of love for Krishna. That's Vani. That was Krishna's instruction to them. He had given them an instruction, the Brahmins' wives. Hear about me, chant about me, meditate upon me, serve me, always remember me. And we will always be together. That is more important than the physical proximity. And he sent them home. And they took those words and enshrined them in their hearts. And for the rest of eternity, those Brahmins' wives were remembering Krishna in the ecstasy of love and separation forever. And they were united with Krishna, with the deepest reciprocation of love in their separation forever. They argued, our parents, our husbands, they will never let us back because we abandoned them. Krishna said, I will arrange, they will allow you back. So even going back was a great risk. Going there was a tremendous risk, but going back was a great risk. But that was their faith in Krishna. Their faith in Krishna, they abandoned everything to go and see him, and then they were abandoning him in one sense physically to go back to a place where they could be abused and punished and everything else. That's what they were expecting. But they were willing to go back for Krishna. But when they did, they were in so much ecstasy. Their husbands saw their ecstasy, and Krishna in the hearts of their husbands gave them enlightenment. Because they were scholars of Vedas, they knew what transcendental ecstasy was. When they saw their wives, they said, everything that we're looking for, they have it and beyond. Then they started, the Brahmins condemned themselves. Because when they saw the ecstasy of their wives' love, they realized who Krishna was. It's quite similar to the Nagapatnis and Kaliya. Of course, Brahmins are different than Kaliya. But ultimately, Kaliya surrendered even more than the Brahmins. And Kaliya was not Brahminical at all. The Brahmins were very clean. They did, made everything with achmans and cow dungs and yantras, and they made everything perfectly clean as far as possible. And Kaliya was just vomiting poison everywhere he went. But the similarity between both of them is when Kaliya saw the love of his wives for Krishna, he became enlightened. And when the Brahmins saw the ecstasy of their wives' love, they realized who Krishna really was. Vedaishcha sarvaraham eva vedyo. We are scholars of Vedas, but all the Vedas are to know Krishna. And we are so condemned. We are performing all these pujas and all these yagyas and all our mantras and tantras and yantras and mudras and all of these other things, and we're reciting the Vedas so precisely. And the whole purpose is to please Krishna. And as the culmination of all of our Brahminical duties, Krishna sent his friends to allow us to serve him and please him. And we were so caught up in the rituals, which are meant to do that, that we completely neglected to please him and serve him. And they were saying, to hell with our yagyas. To hell with our recitation of Vedic mantras. We are condemned. The very purpose of everything we do, we have neglected. To lovingly serve Krishna and Balaram. But our wives, they are so glorious. They never had the reformatory processes like we did. They never got the same types of high initiations like we did. They never studied the Vedas and the Vedantas like we did. They never performed or were trained to perform sacrifices like we do. They're not honored and respected by everyone as gurus like we are. But they surrendered their hearts to Krishna, which is the goal of life, and we did not. They are so fortunate. We are condemned. And by the influence of their wives, the Brahmins actually surrendered their hearts to Krishna. But not totally. The last verse of this chapter. Will also be the end of this class. The Brahmins say, we were bewildered by Lord Krishna's illusory potency and thus could not understand his influence as the original personality of Godhead. Now we hope he will kindly forgive our offense. Thus, reflecting on the sin they had committed by neglecting Lord Krishna, they became very eager to see him. But, being afraid of King Kamsa, they did not dare to go to Braj. Hare Krishna. Now here is the contrast between them and their wives. Here they realize who Krishna is. And they're actually, in their own little way, surrendering their hearts to Krishna. But they understood, because if Kamsa found out that they were going to offer respects to Krishna, he may kill them. He may torture them. So they didn't go. But as far as their wives, the same principle holds for them. If Kamsa found out that they went, they would have been tortured and killed, but they couldn't care less. Sarvadharaman Parityasha. I'll read the purport. Realizing their offense against Lord Krishna and finally appreciating his almighty position, the Brahmins naturally wanted to rush to Braj and surrender at the lotus feet of the Lord, but they were afraid that Kamsa would certainly kill them when his spies reported that they had gone to Krishna. The Brahmins' wives were absorbed in ecstatic Krishna consciousness and thus went to Krishna anyway. Just as the gopis, simply to dance with the Lord, traveled in the dead of night through a forest inhabited by wild animals. But the Brahmins were not on such an advanced platform of Krishna consciousness, and thus, overcome by fear of Kamsa, could not see the Lord face to face. So this last verse highlights the glorious nature of the love of the Brahmins' wives. They were willing to expose themselves to the group without consideration for the pleasure of Krishna. This is ahoitaki apratihata. Unmotivated, uninterrupted devotional service. This apratihata, uninterrupted by circumstances. We cannot imitate. But this is the nature of the Brahmins' wives. This is the nature of the gopis. This is Vrindavan. Unless we have this kind of love, to understand Vrindavan is only theoretical. This is the very basic foundation of Braj Bhakti, is this unconditional, unmotivated love. Apratihata, uninterrupted by any circumstance. Krishna wants their food. If it means they'll be tortured, if it means they'll be abandoned, if it means they'll be killed, those are all circumstances. But my service to please Krishna will not be interrupted by any of these mundane. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to give us this. Even in our daily lives, we could live with this principle. And we can cultivate this consciousness in the association of devotees, chanting the holy name. Much louder, please. The Sunday feast program is quickly approaching. So everyone, please. Have you had breakfast prasad yet? Some of you are saying no very enthusiastically. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you very much.